Okay, in this next question, it wants to know about all the different characteristics that you could find out about a polynomial. And so in this case, the first question is about finding the y-intercept. And to find the y-intercept, you plug in 0, right, into your function, and that gives you the y value. And so plugging in 0 into each one of these factors, you have the factor x. So that would plugging 0 for x, you get a 0. Okay, let me move this down. You're going to get a 0 times -8. You plug it in there, and then times a +2, and that is 0. So your y-intercept is 0. Next up, you have to find out the x-intercepts, and those are the roots. Right, that's where the graph would cross the x-axis. And in this case, you're setting the entire thing equal to 0, the entire polynomial, that is. And so when you set the entire polynomial equal to 0, you're solving for the roots. So in this case, it's all factored out. You would set each factor equal to 0, right? And then that would give you the intercepts. So the first factor gives you the intercept 0. The second factor, x minus 8, set that equal to 0, and that gives you the intercept x equals 8. And you set the next factor, x plus 2, equal to 0, and that gives you the intercept x equals -2. So you have these three intercepts, these three x-intercepts, and you can enter them in those boxes, but I see here that you have to do it in such a way that you list it from left to right. So looking at these numbers 0, 8, and -2, the leftmost number is -2, so that would be the first entry. The second number would be 0, because that's in the middle, and then 8 would be your third intercept. And then finally, the last bit is about the long-term behavior. So plugging in very large positive values of x, what can you predict is happening with y in terms of its values? Is it very large positive or very large negative? And so you can see here, x going to positive infinity, let me clean this up, will have you plugging in very large positive values for x. So looking at each factor, you'd have a very large positive value for the first factor times a very large positive value for the second times a very large positive value for the third factor, and a positive times positive times positive, that's a positive. Now, you do the same kind of analysis, but with x being a negative value. So you do the same analysis with your function. And you say, okay, what happens when I plug in a very large negative number into x? Well, you get a negative number. What about the next factor? If I plug in a very large negative number for x, that would still be a negative number. So you have a negative times a negative. And then the third factor, plug a large negative number into here, and you get negative. So you'll have a negative times negative times negative, and that gives you a negative value altogether. So those are the characteristics of this particular polynomial.